All right, moving on to part 2 of this idea for octave shapes. Well, what are the last 2 octave shapes? Well, here they are. I can still subdivide these 6 strings. And if I do, instead of 3 strings apiece, I'm going to subdivide them into 4 strings apiece. So set 1 is going to be strings 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Set 2 is going to be strings 2, 3, 4, and 5. And set 3 will be strings 3, 4, 5, and 6. Remember the tuning. Set 1, when I include 3 strings, it's going to be 4, 3, 4. Okay? But when I play the octave shape, it's going to be 4 strings and 3 frets. Remember that idea of 4s and 3s? Well, kind of, there it is again. All right? I go 1, 2, 3 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4 strings. That is an octave. How about set 2 of these? Well, now the tuning from low to high is 4, 4, 3. So I have a fourth, and a third. But what is my octave shape? Well, here it comes again, that idea of 3s and 4s. I have 1, 2, 3 frets, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 strings. The octave shape itself is maintained in set 1 to set 2. And again, I'm running into this idea of 4s and 3s becoming continual in this concept. Okay? All right, so now we'll do the final octave shape. Okay? And this one, we're going to kind of break away from this idea of 3s and 4s. Hang with me for a second. We can try to include an abstract concept with this, but I'd really just rather try a different way of explaining it. So, what do I have here? I'm going to have a fourth, and a fourth. 3 4s in tuning. All right, so I could say I have 3 4ths because the octave shape is 4 frets, 4 strings. Okay, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4 strings. And that's the last octave shape. Now, how do we kind of ration that? Because we could say, well, that's different than the others because you're not using the 3 and 4 theme. Yeah, I mean, I did talk about there's 3 4ths in this. However, I'd rather look at it this way. Remember in sets 3 and 4 when I had 3 string octave shapes? The tuning was 4s and the octave shape was all 3s, right? 3 frets, 3 strings. Well, when I go to this last octave shape, it has this unity as well. 3 frets, 3 strings in sets 3 and 4 of 3 strings apiece. When I go to this last octave shape, it's all 4s. So I have 4 frets, 4 strings. So again, there's this kind of unity in relation to the tuning as well. If my tuning is all the same number, my octave shape is all the same number. So whether we're talking about 4s for 3 strings or 4s for 4 strings, I still have this unifying shape of 3 frets, 3 strings, or 4 frets, 4 strings. All right? Now, from a practical standpoint, of those shapes, which are you going to play the most? I would say it depends on your skill level, and it depends on what you do. Sets 1, 2, 3, and 4 from 3 strings apiece tend to be utilized quite a bit more than sets 1, 2, and 3 at 4 strings apiece. But again, are those octave shapes not used? No, they're used quite a bit. But I think it really depends on the genre that you're in. Playing something like like that tends to be a lot easier because I'm trapping back here versus, see now if I have to do that with this set, I've got to muffle these other strings in between, and it's doable. But what tends to be the quicker one to do when you're going from a low to a high string to get to the octave? I'm going up in frets to get to that next octave. When I go up in frets from a high string to a low string to get to that lower octave, I'm leaving open 2 more strings, or like that, right? Now I've seen some phenomenal jazz players do those shapes more often than the other ones. But again, it's just skill level and what they're doing with these octave shapes. But why am I bringing up the idea of octave shapes? Here's why. Because when you become very familiar with octave shapes, you will have the ability to spot other places that you can jump. Especially if you know your chord shapes to the point of knowing where the root is for each one of those chord shapes, whether we're talking simple or complicated chords. If we're talking simple major or minor chords, I could use 3 strings, 4 strings, 5 strings, even 6 strings to play a big chord. But if I can see all the roots inside a chord shape, I have the ability to probably do more with the voicings. And I'm going to cover a brief video in this right after this just to talk about this. And it's going to throw out the other concept that I want to get out here that I threw out earlier in volume 2. And that is, how many of the same note are there within 12 frets? 6. That's it. There are no more of the same note within 12 frets on the neck of a guitar. You think it's going to be easy to spot 6 notes in time after you get used to playing octave shapes? Yeah, it's going to get to be really easy. So I'm going to stop this here, and then we're going to dive in and just talk about that concept. So, see you in the next video. Thanks for watching this video. Again, I'm Phil Olson. To purchase the Awesome Guitar Series, click on the link below. It'll take you to Amazon. You can see full descriptions of each one of the volumes. After you've made your purchase and you receive them, go home and practice.